Hi, and welcome to the next webinar in our Plantae webinar series. My name is Katie Rogers, and I'm your host for today's webinar. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few things just to make sure you get the most out of attending today's webinar. This webinar series is brought to you today by Plantae, the open online community for plant scientists, powered by the American Society of Plant Biologists. I would like to give a special thank you to all of our ASPB members who are attending today. Your ASPB membership dues help support and make these webinars possible. For any of you who have not yet joined ASPB, you can do so today and support this series using the discount code webinar10 to receive a 10% discount on registration. ASPB members get early access to these seminars. You can learn more about ASPB and the opportunities we provide at aspb.org. If you are having trouble connecting or need to leave this webinar early, know that a recording will be made available along with associated materials within a few days. You'll also notice that there's a chat area open. This section is for you to connect with your colleagues by introducing yourself, say where you're from, and let us know about any technical issues. If you have questions that are specifically for our panelists, I'd like to encourage you to put those in the Zoom question and answer Q&A section. Questions specifically for our panelists can be shared there, and then you can also upvote them so that it makes it easier for our moderator to navigate. Be sure to check out the archive of our previous webinars and follow us on social media. The hashtag for this series is Plantae Webinar. While I have your attention, we have a couple of ASPB updates and opportunities that I would like to share. The first update is about ASPB's annual plant biology meeting. Each year, this event brings together plant biologists to talk about the latest research topics. In 2020, this meeting was held completely online, and we had over 2,500 participants. ASPB's program committee is currently working on making plans for next year's event. The overall theme for next year's event is plants powering the bioeconomy. If you have ideas for workshops and would like to submit them, please send us a proposal by December 4th. Although we are currently planning to have a face-to-face meeting in Pittsburgh, fingers crossed, organizers should describe how they would convert their workshop to a hybrid or a virtual conference format if that becomes necessary. I'd also like to encourage you to apply for a travel award to attend the plant biology meeting in 2021. More information about ASPB funding opportunities can be found on our website. Notice that the first two deadlines are coming up soon in December. Another opportunity I would like to mention is the AAAS Mass Media Science and Engineering Fellowship Program. This program carries out the mission to increase public understanding of science and technology. Over the past decades, more than 700 scientists have gone through this 10-week summer program and have explored the realm of science journalism. ASPB has been a proud sponsor of this fellowship for many years, and we would like to continue to foster our community members to become engaging science communicators. The deadline for next year's program is January 1st, 2021. U.S. students and postdocs those within 1 year of their program completion are encouraged to apply. Our Plantae Fellow and ASPB intern, Youngting Cao, has created an intern interview series with our recent ASPB AAAS Fellows. To read about their experiences in the program, check out our ASPB blog. Right. Today's webinar was organized by ASPB's Women in Plant Biology Committee. I'm going to turn it over now to Katie Murphy, who is a PhD candidate at the University of California, Davis. Of course, you're also very close to being having a PhD. I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about the Women in Plant Biology Committee and introduce our speakers.
Great.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Katie Rogers. I'm so excited to be moderating today. As Katie said, I'm the early career representative to the Women in Plant Biology Committee. So what we do is put on awesome events like this. We brainstormed this one because there's so many startups. I think a lot of graduate students could name off the top of their head a bunch of large industry companies, but it's harder for us to name startups and know what careers are available. So I'm really excited to hear what everyone has to say. So we are a committee, but we also would like to become a larger community and network of women and allies in plant biology. So you can find us on Plantae to join discussions, see all of our other webinars and blog posts, and you can also find us on Twitter for announcements. Katie, if you could go to the next slide, please. We also want to give a plug to the early career plant scientist section of ASPB that's fairly new. I'm proud to be a member of this section where we're hoping to take in ideas, representation, and provide more events to early career plant scientists like many of you may be watching. So join today. And I think we'll go to the next slide. All right. And of course, I have all your faces in front of it, but join ASPB. I feel like we're on PBS. Thanks to viewers like you, we get to make this possible. So with that, I think we can stop sharing the screen, and I'm actually going to let each of our panelists introduce themselves because they know themselves better than I do. So let me change my view real quick. So for each of our panelists, please tell us what company you work for, a little bit about what your company does, and really how did you get here? What was your education path? So people can imagine themselves in your role as well. So why don't we start with Diana?
Sounds good. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Hi, everyone. I'm Diana Castillo. I am originally from Guatemala, but I have been in the US for about 14 years. So I did all of my education here in the US. I started at Purdue University, then moved to the University of Minnesota, and then finally to Texas A&M in Texas. And from there, I got recruited as a scientist to a startup called, back then, Symbiota. Now we are called Indigo Agriculture. So when I got recruited, we were about 14 people, and now we're over 1,200 employees worldwide. Our headquarters is in Boston, Massachusetts, but we have offices in Memphis, in North Carolina, and internationally in Brazil, Argentina, and in Sweden. The mission of our company really is to harness nature and help farmers sustainably feed the planet. So we do so through the plant microbiome and through digital technologies. Something that I saw in an email earlier is just to give you guys a little bit of background how my day-to-day looks like. And it really depends on the day. For example, Thursdays I work from home, and I control my schedule where I block usually my mornings to be able to work on projects. For example, this morning I was working on 2 presentations that I need to finish, one for this afternoon and one for tomorrow. And in the afternoon, I leave it open for people to put meetings in my calendar. And today I'm meeting with my team where we have one-to-ones and basically discuss whatever really comes to mind. Other than that, am I missing any information?
No, that was excellent. Thanks so much. And we'll hear more from you soon with our questions. All right. Why don't we go to Anil next? And you're muted.
Hi, everybody. I'm Anil Kumar. I'm a molecular biologist by training, and I currently work as senior scientist for TechAccel. TechAccel currently has about 15 full-time employees and about 10 part-time employees. TechAccel is headquartered at Kansas City, Kansas. And there is another satellite unit that is located in St. Louis, Missouri, and I work from St. Louis. As far as TechAccel is concerned, it can be described as a private capital development company that acquires, accelerates, and invests in early stage technologies in agriculture and animal health sectors. As far as my journey or how I got here, it's a long story. I've worked in a number of startups. My startup journey started in India. I joined a biotech startup called Metahelix Life Sciences that is based in Bangalore, India. I played a key role at Metahelix in developing transgenic cotton for Metahelix. And after working for 3 years at Metahelix, I came to Ohio State University for my graduate studies. My PhD dissertation research focused on improving recombinant protein expression in the microalgae Chlamydomonas reinhardti. And I also worked on developing biotechnological applications of Chlamydomonas. After completing my PhD, I joined FICAL, an algae-based biofuel startup. I led projects focused on improving photosynthetic efficiency and developing new applications for algal biomass, which included using algae to deliver double-stranded RNA for control of white spot syndrome virus of shrimp through feed. After FICAL, I joined for a short time in another startup called K Life Sciences, which was focused on developing RNAi-based control for plant pathogenic fungus. After KLS, I joined APSI, which is also known as RNA Agri. RNA Agri focused on developing technology for large-scale production of double-stranded RNA and to develop RNA-based products for control of agricultural, urban, and structural pests. RNA Agri used E. coli and Corynebacterium fermentation for RNA production. And I can say that we had great success with both the organisms. And because of RNA Agri's success with the production of RNA in a grass organism like Corynebacterium, TechAccel collaborated with RNA Agri in 2019. And we got some great results working together, as a result of which TechAccel acquired RNA Agri in May of 2020. And that's how I became an employee of TechAccel. I believe I have covered everything. If there is anything you can ask me.
That's great. That's quite a journey. It's been great to see, as I think everyone will once we hear about the rest of our panelists. Everyone kind of has a different journey to startups, and you have been through so many, so it's interesting to hear. That's great. And I'm going to ask if folks can, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section, and you can chat in the chat. But for our panelists and for me, it's easier if we can see your questions in Q&A, and we're going to be able to find them easier. So next, let's go to Christy, please.
Hello, hi, my name is Christy Gault, and I work at Inari Agriculture. I started there 2 years ago, and at that time we had about 60 employees in one location in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And now we have over 165 employees over 3 sites. So we've nearly tripled in size, and we have a site in West Lafayette, Indiana, and Ghent in Belgium, in addition to our Cambridge headquarters. And what we do is we're imagining how to blend breeding and editing to improve crops. And this means using editing to improve the genetic background, but also to make those high value traits, to introduce those high value traits into crops. So for my first year and a half at Inari, I worked as a product manager. And this meant I shepherded Inari's first edited crop product through the technical proof of concept phase. But I currently work as a scientist in the science tribe, and that's what we call the side of the company that does exploratory research, discovery-based research. So I'm currently working with a quantitative genetics team that nominates edits to make to improve maize. And my responsibility is to design technical proof of concept experiments to test whether these edits actually do improve maize. And so I'm designing cellular assays and greenhouse assays, as well as analyzing those data. As for how I got here, I started out with a bachelor's degree in molecular biology from Colgate University, and I decided I wanted to pursue plant genetics because I really care deeply about sustainable intensification of agriculture. So I went to get my PhD in plant molecular and cellular biology at University of Florida. I was co-advised. I was a member of 2 different labs, so I got interdisciplinary training in both molecular genetics and computational biology. And then I went into a completely different field and did a postdoc in plant breeding and quantitative genetics at Cornell University. So I have a pretty broad background, and that allows me to have conversations with people from all across the company and different teams with different backgrounds. Specifically how I got to Inari, through my network, I told everyone that I was looking for jobs in industry. I always knew I wanted to go into industry. And so I applied to multiple different companies. One of my contacts that I made at a conference, I passed my resume along to Inari, and they called me in for an interview, and here I am.
Great, thanks so much. All right, let's go to Henrik next.
Hi, so my name is Henrik Simonsen. I'm actually trained as a pharmacist originally, long time ago, in the last millennium. So that is a bit of a while ago. And then I swapped into working with plant natural products during that my studies, and did a PhD in natural product chemistry from the University of Copenhagen. I then took an academic career. I've been in academia for the last approximately 18 years now, including postdocs, and now I'm an associate professor. also at the Technical University of Denmark. Apart from that, I am the CEO of Mosspiration Biotech, which is a small startup company that we started 4.5 years ago now to promote a product that we thought was quite cool. It's fragrant mussels that you basically purchase to have an alternative sources for fragrances in your household. Originally, the idea was also to promote production of fragrances for the perfume industry. So not only as the mussels, as you can see here behind me, but also for the production for fragrances for perfume industry. That process is still in development, so we are not making money on that part at the moment, but we actually make money off selling fragrant mussels to everyone in the United States. And that's the only place currently because of the legislation issues around the world. It is really tricky to get GM plants approved, even though this is for an ornamental purpose and it's going to be in a glass and it's going to be in your household only and all these things. But so that's a long discussion we can have afterwards. But that's where I am right now. So apart from being the director of this company, I'm also an associate professor. So that's like 50% of my time that I do with this. And this is really fun to be in both worlds, I would say, because they are not the same and they're very different from each other, but it's really a nice journey I've been on so far.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, let's go to Shu next.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. My name is Shu, and I came to the States 10 years ago as international student. I was born and raised in China, and I got my PhD in plant biology from Penn State University. So if there's any Penn Stater here, hi, we are. And I got my PhD there in 2016. After that, I met my previous co-founder on LinkedIn. So I'm going to talk more about how to network on LinkedIn today. So I met my previous co-founder on LinkedIn and joined the startup called Alpine Roads in San Francisco after graduation. So I was co-founder and CSO there for 3 years. Grew the team to the size of 15 scientists last year, and I figured that was a good opportunity for me to leave the company and explore something new. The company is still doing great. So last year I moved from San Francisco to Los Angeles and met my current co-founder, and we bounced ideas for a few months, and earlier this year in the middle of the pandemic, we started our second company, Petri Bio. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Petri Bio. Here we are developing novel therapeutics and healthcare products using gut microbes. So we're still early stage, but exploring some different applications, including treatment of chronic disease. So if anyone has question about how to both using plant biology training in the ag tech world and also leverage that skill in exploring opportunity in food tech or even healthcare industry, I hope I can answer a little bit of that.
Wonderful, thank you. And last, but of course not least, let's go to Jeff.
Thank you, Katie, and thanks for inviting me today. Yeah, my name is Jeff Staub. I am the founder and chief scientist of Plastomics in St. Louis, Missouri. We are a emerging startup company. I started in 2017. Our goal is to develop new technology to introduce traits into the chloroplasts of crop plants. And so we're making GMO chloroplasts. We're a small company, currently 5 people in the lab, 3 people management team. By the way, my CEO and CFO are both women. So we support women in science. How did I get here? Well, I was fortunate. I got my PhD in the lab that developed the first iteration of this technology by introducing or doing transformation of chloroplasts in tobacco plants. That was in the middle 90s. And in 1997, I went to Monsanto, a company in St. Louis, to take that technology and try to develop it in crop plants. We worked on the technology for several years, but for a variety of reasons, Monsanto decided to shelf that technology. I continued to work at Monsanto for almost 20 years, doing many other things in their biotech pipeline. And when I left in 2016, I retired from Monsanto. I decided to go back to my first science love, which is this chloroplast transformation technology, and start Plastomics. So my days are filled with working with people in the lab. I still occasionally actually do work in the lab, but mostly I spend time interacting with investors and hopefully prospective investors and my board of directors and people like that.
Excellent. Great. So at this point, we're going to get into some questions. And I see there's a question in the chat first. I will post all of the links to these companies and our awesome panelists' LinkedIn profiles on a Plantae post at the end of our webinar. So you'll get to be able to find those after this. So to start with, let's talk a little bit about what are the biggest differences between working in academia versus industry versus startups. I know we get a lot of undergraduate, master's, graduate students, and postdocs trying to figure out where do I go? What's going to be a good fit for me? So Jeff, since you just said you really pivoted from Monsanto, which is a really large company, to your startup, what do you see as the major differences?
Well, that's a great question, Kenny. I think there's really a lot of differences. And, you know, there's some myths as well. So maybe I can try to dispel one or two of those. But when I was going through my graduate career, you know, I was asking myself the question everybody asks: should I go to academia or should I go to industry? And at the time, and I think it's still true, you know, getting funding in academia is so difficult. It really makes it difficult to be successful. And so I decided, well, I'll go to industry because there's so much more money there, you know, and there's many more opportunities. And I was lucky. I went to Monsanto, which is a very large and successful company, and would say it's dramatically different from my experience was in academia. They do have a lot of money, but they're also trying to do a lot of things. And so there's a constant focus and reprioritization that goes on a daily basis, but formally on a yearly basis. So a major difference is, you know, when you're in academia, you basically are a grad student or a postdoc, and you have a project, and you're probably seeing that project from beginning to end. And, you know, your ultimate goal is to publish or get a job. And in industry, you know, the primary goal is not to publish, it's really to get a product. And so there's a constant pressure to do only what will get you closer to a product. And so there's constant reprioritization, refocusing. So you have to be comfortable that your end goal is not going to be to get published and get your name out there. It's going to be to keep the company moving forward. And then there's also constant change. So if you're the kind of person that wants to work on the same project for the next many years, which is perfectly good way to have your career, that's probably not what's going to happen in industry. You're really going to be forced to move and change with the times. And then along with that, you know, when you're in academia, you tend to be your own boss and you tend to manage your own project. In industry, there are a lot of teams working on aspects of your project that you constantly have to hand off part of your project to and work with and really collaborate. And so the name of the game in industry, at least the industries I'm familiar with, is really to collaborate broadly, to be open and share all of your knowledge and to work on multiple projects. So I think very different from academia.
Wonderful, thank you, that's really useful. I'm gonna next ask the same question to Diana. Do you have anything to add, especially because you went from a really small company and Indigo is really growing a lot. What do you see as some of the biggest differences when our early career people are looking for what to do next?
Right. Yeah, I think what Jeff mentioned, very important. So from my experience, I wanted to basically focus on 3 areas that I think, were or can be different from academia and in a company, in a startup. So the first thing is a goal setting culture. So companies usually set goals yearly or twice a year, or at Indigo, we do it 4 times a year. So what this does is, keeps us on our toes, basically, right? And though you are writing personal goals, really your goals are tied or are connected to your department and ultimately to the company goal. And what this forces you is, as Jeff mentioned a little bit, is collaborate. I mean, everyone is responsible to accomplish those goals. So you're collaborating, and key skills here to have is, very good verbal and written communication, a collaborative spirit, and, just be able to share that knowledge so that all of you accomplish that goal. The second part of it, and it's kind of related to the goal culture, is project planning and management. So within each goal, you're going to have multiple projects. And at the beginning of each of those projects, you need to set a timeline. So before you even start, with the idea, you have to set up timeline. You have to set up measurable tasks that are going to help you get to that project, or to finalize that project. And also, importantly to mention here is also you have to foresee any risks or challenges, so that you can account that in your timeline, so that if you don't get to finalize that project, then you have basically a document that said what came up. So key skills here, to have is time and energy management, because especially at Indigo, that we change our goals every 3 months, basically. You cannot be in a go all the time. So you do have to manage your time and your energy efficiently so that you can accomplish your goals and your projects. And lastly, also, Jeff mentioned this, is budget. So there is a difference in the budget and how we manage it in industry versus in academia. So something that I want to mention here, and one of the differences that I first noticed, is that if the access to technologies in the market, it's pretty different in academia as it is in industry. So in industry, you want to get to your product as fast and as efficiently as possible. So you want to use your human resources the best way that you can. So automation is huge in industry, because you want to utilize those resources the best way. So for example, just purchasing software that is going to help you analyze data, that is going to help you analyze images, to understand, for example, in this case, plant phenotypic traits, hiring personnel and things like that. So how to manage resource, and especially budget, is very important, because we have stakeholders, right? We have investors, and we have to show them how we're spending their money, and we're spending it the best way. I think that's what I wanted to add.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to push us to our next question, which is about this concept of wearing many hats. It's something that comes up a lot with startups, because regardless of what your employee title might be, I think it's typical that people are often doing many things. They say they're wearing many hats. So I want to go to Henrik first, because you are both in academics and you have a startup, and we actually have a great question in our Q&A for you, which is, how did you get the funds for your company started and keep it moving while developing your current project? How are you managing all that and wearing all these hats?
I'm not sure I'm very good at it, but I'm trying. I think the most important thing, and it's also what some of the other speakers have said, is that you focus on what you really like. I mean, what is close to your heart. And I think that's one of the key things. I think funding for the company was we started on a bit of a different way. We actually had a collaboration with an American company that was paid to do the first couple of years of work. And since we've been running off the, I would say the fumes of what is coming out of selling these plants, and on other research projects and collaborations and EU grants and what have we not. So we pulled in a lot of the skills we had from academia, raising funds, so soft funds from different sources, and also some investor capital later into the company, so not in the beginning. And this utilizing the skills you have from one part of your career into the next one, I think is really crucial. So I think, but the managing of different hats, yes, I mean, I'm both the CEO, CFO, COO, C whatever. I do have a co-founder who's about to leave us, unfortunately, but who has been taking care of all the science parts, and I've been doing all the management. So mainly because my native language is Danish, and most of the management in Denmark apparently happens in Danish, and he's not. So that's a major part of it, I would say. But yeah, so it's basically, I think, as long as you keep track of your time, all the same as Dana said, I mean, you need to be running your calendar tightly. I mean, and then just put aside other things that, yeah. And sometimes you have time for this as well, like sitting on panelists like this.
Well, we're glad you're here. This is wonderful. Great. So I want to pose a similar question to Shu. How do you manage these many hats, and especially because you've pivoted from multiple startups to really different topics, right? Different products. How do you manage all of that, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I will try my best to answer this question. I think wearing multiple hats, a typical, especially for us, super early stage company founders, we are basically doing the research, doing fundraising, and like Henrik mentioned, like being the CFO, being accountant and secretary, and sometimes janitor of the lab as well. I think I actually really enjoy that because it really diversifies your time, how you spend your time. You have different things to do and you keep learning new things every day. But I think two things I really want to mention is I would highly recommend, while you're doing everything, having fun, learning new things, don't forget two things. One is we need to know what we are good at and what we are not. I remember very early in my career, one of the colleagues in the startup incubator, another founder of another company, told me something I just remember very clearly. He was saying, Shu, you're a PhD, you're a smart person. I believe if your car broke down on the side of the highway, you can fix it after you read manual for a few hours. But it's not the most efficient thing than comparing to just a call AAA. So it's the same thing as in the startup. Sometimes people have experience in doing that every day, all day long, can fix the things really efficiently and professionally. So I think in startup, while you're wearing multiple hats, trying to hustle and do everything by yourself, sometimes we need to know what we're not good at and search for professional help and outsource things. And another thing I think have been ignored, but I'm glad to figure out in the startup community this topic has been brought up more often lately, is pay attention to your mental health, because founders, you're the most valuable assets of your startup company. So take care of yourself, make time to take care of yourself, exercise, eat healthy, and meditate. That's also taking care of the company as well.
Wow, that's really important. I really like that. And this is, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but my next question was how do some of you on our panel find work-life balance? Because that's, like Shu just said, is so important. We're not good at work if we're not finding balance. And I think that's particularly hard in many of your roles because you have so much that you have to do. And you have all these C titles. So how do you manage it all? So let's go first to Anil. How do you find work-life balance, particularly in your role?
Well, as some of the other panelists who are founders, they described that they put on many different hats. Similarly, as an employee, I can say that employees at startups also wear many hats. And I have been part of two very early stage startups where, I was the first employee sitting in an empty room with a task to start the process of establishing lab, or, sitting in a lab with very limited amount of resources. And so you have to get creative in getting your work or your experiments completed. So, and all this comes with the, along with the responsibility, in addition to setting up the setting up of labs, you have the responsibility to start talking about and thinking about the research projects, writing grants, etc. So there are times when a lot is thrown at you, and I believe it depends on the person or individual how to handle this. I believe one has to realize that, a work never gets over and there is always more work to do. So, and you can accomplish or complete only a certain amount of work in a day. So I believe the most important thing is that, you have to sit with your supervisor or your boss and have constant communication with them, sit with them, come out with a timeline, clearly find out, what are their timelines, what are their expectations, have constant communication with them and let them know how much time it takes to, complete an experiment, so that they don't have any unrealistic expectations. So I believe this communication plays a very important role in achieving work-life balance, because that's when, the boss or the supervisor understands how much time it takes to accomplish a particular task. And that's what I have been trying to do, or I have been doing in my career in startups. So, you sit with your boss, come out with a timeline, set goals, and that way you have to try to convince them or explain to them how much time it takes to accomplish a particular task. This has helped me in achieving work-life balance. Of course, there are times when there are certain deadlines, and you might have to spend 12 to 14 hours in a day to meet the deadline. But I believe communication goes a long way in achieving work-life balance. That's what I can say.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, let's go to Christy next. Same question.
Yeah, so what work-life balance really means for me is solving the two-body problem. My husband is also a scientist, and we had to structure our careers from the beginning before I even started working in industry to kind of address this. So we've been facing this problem all throughout graduate school and our postdocs, and then our first real jobs after our postdocs. So he landed a tenure track professorship at SUNY Buffalo. So knowing that, I started to do an industry search around that area, and it's just a desert. It was a desert at the time for jobs in industry, which is where I wanted to go. So I looked for jobs within a 1 hour nonstop flight from Buffalo. And that's how I found, I focused on Boston being a startup kind of hub, and also other places. And so what I found were that other companies are open to working with people in this situation. So, working, half-time, long distance for a company I was interviewing at in the Midwest. And then when I got the job offer from Inari, I asked for it to be written into my contract that I would work 3 days per month offsite in Buffalo. So that allows for 2 or 3 long weekends where I'm working from Buffalo. And so that is kind of how I balance. It was a lot of travel. I certainly racked up those frequent flyer miles, but it worked, and now that there's a pandemic, I'm actually in Buffalo right now, working at my husband's house. So yeah, I think it's important just to, if you have something like that, to make it clear to your employer, like, this is something that's really important to me. And they were very, very willing to work with me. In fact, I had it in my contract for 6 months. I'm going to work 5 days a week at Inari in Cambridge. I won't go anywhere. And then after that deadline or that time period, I'm going to start working, 1 day a week from Buffalo. And when I started and established the trust with my advisor, he said, you can start. It's not the 6 month mark, but this is important for you to be healthy and happy. So please start.
Wow,
so yeah,
that's great. Thank you for sharing that, because I think a lot of folks, myself included, don't know that you can even work that into a contract in order to make, the rest of your life has to work for whatever your career is as well. So that's really important. So we're getting some excellent questions in the chat. So I'm going to pivot our topics a little bit to getting the job and how do you really get into startups. So before we get into sort of being an employee in startups, I want us to touch briefly, and I know this could be a whole many webinar series on founding your own startup and how did you begin, and suggestions specifically for people who want to found their startup. So I know we've got, I think, three founders here. So Shu, Henrik, or Jeff, do any of you want to give some tips on to how do you really start your own company?
Sure, Katie. This is Jeff. I wish there was an instruction manual, but as far as I know, there is not. When I left Monsanto in 2016, I felt like I wanted to do something, and I had thought about maybe I would go to another company or academia or even start my own company. So I just started talking to people. Luckily, St. Louis has quite a good small business ecosystem. So there were a lot of people to talk to, but I spent about 4 or 5 months literally talking to people every single day. Wow. About, here's my expertise. I'm thinking about starting a company. Do you think it's a valid idea? How would you get started, etc. But I would say the biggest piece of advice is to find hopefully you're close to a place that would have a small business incubator and an ecosystem to help founders. Yeah. St. Louis has an active small business incubator called BioSTL. And I think I finally found the right people after a lot of searching that actually started to walk me through the process. So someone said, don't do it yourself. You definitely have to get help. The other thing I would say is, if you're actually thinking about starting a company on your idea X or your product Y, it's critical to talk to people that would be your customers. And that's something I didn't do nearly as much as I should have, because it kind of took almost a year to figure out exactly what was the right thing for the company to develop. Our original idea was not exactly where we're going today. And that's just because it took a long time to find our customers and figure out what they really needed. So I'd say do your homework, before you start your company.
Wonderful, thanks. Anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. That's a great point. I think you said a lot of, I wish I hear what you just said 3 years ago. Yeah, I think for my understanding is 2 types of founders. One type is you already have your ideas, either from your graduate school research or your professor may want to do a spin out. I'm assuming Henrik can talk more about that scenario, so I won't touch that. I think for my situation, 4 years ago, when I was about to graduate, I knew I guess I'm not the tenure professor material, and I want to do something just people want. I want to produce a product using technology. That was my goal. So I started searching on LinkedIn and local community, but unfortunately, I think back then in State College, Penn State, the startup ecosystem was not fully formed yet. Now there's a launch box and some investors. That's really great nowadays. So back then, I had to go online and go search people and start talking to people. So I ended up met my previous co-founder on LinkedIn, who has an idea but doesn't have the scientific background or network to execute it. So that's one scenario. And this time when I do the company, I think over the time when I was doing my previous company, I noticed microbiome start being a trend, and it's really powerful being helping human health and plant health. But I realized there are some technical gap. People are still not really discovering that. And that's why I started thinking about that. When I got the chance to do another company, I started talking to local people in LA, and my current co-founder also noticed has the similar vision in this industry. And fortunately, his background was in biomedical research. So our team, when we first started, we were thinking about covering both ag tech and the human health sector. So I guess another thing is, as founder, you also need to be ready to pivot based on the market need. And like Jeff mentioned, based on the market, based on what your customer wants, and also the funding situation. So when we formed the company earlier this year, it was in the middle of pandemic, we kind of realized the healthcare sector would attract more funding and opportunity and more attention. That's why we decided to focus on the healthcare sector first, not to say we're not going back to ag tech later. So I think that's another tip, just ready to pivot based on, be flexible.
Wonderful.
I don't know if you want me to comment on this. I would say I think the academic spin-outs are different in the sense that you are usually in a setting where there is an environment around you. As also Jeff touched upon, I actually think this is really, really crucial. So if you sit upstate New York or in the middle of the forest in northern Canada, you need to move yourself into an area where you physically can meet with people and talk with them. I mean, also especially with investors, it's easier to convince people that you have a really, really great idea if you meet them. And I can say that the last 8-9 months has not been the easiest time to raise money because it's a little more difficult when you do it all online. So I think that's probably a really good idea. And don't do it yourself. It's a team that you will surround yourself with. So it's you and it's a team player. So it's really important to find people that you trust, for one thing, but also that you know are really good at what they do. And also, as Chu said, I mean, use your networks to find those people. And that also goes for academia. I mean, you don't just spin out of academia just as a single professor. You collect a team and you work with that team. And that could be graduate students from business schools or from social sciences or anywhere. It doesn't really matter as long as they provide good knowledge to you. So I think the team is really, really important. And I can say that now we're also doing our next startup. I mean, then I can see the team there is actually much better than our first one. So I hope that will be much more successful. So.
That's great. Great. So I'm going to take a question from the chat. It's actually two parts. So the first is, do your company, this is going to be to anybody who would like to answer, do your companies typically hire people fresh out of graduate school with a PhD or with a master's? Do you have positions for undergraduates? Are postdocs necessary or important? I know this is kind of a large question, but what education stage should people be looking to really enter the startup workforce? And the second part of that is, what does the hiring timeline look like? Anyone want to kick us off?
I can say if you want to do a startup, then you should start early. So maybe just out of high school, start with some small things, try it out, get a business idea, and then do the university degree and whatever you're gonna learn. But I think the earlier you actually get the feeling for starting a business, the better. You
great.
can just look at Facebook and other, they were not very old when they started.
Yeah,
none of them.
true.
So.
Yeah, I wanted to mention a lot of companies offer internships, so you can start, if you're in high school or if you're in college. And at Indigo, and I know other companies, we hire at every single level. And no, it is not necessary to have a postdoc to be hired as a scientist in a company. It really depends on your experience. So yeah.
I would second that. We have people with undergraduate degrees, master's degrees, PhDs, postdocs. Postdoc is not necessary. People with PhDs are serving as project leaders. So yeah, it's all different degrees of education.
Great. Another great question from the chat is, as people are in any stage of their education, what sort of skill sets do you see as the most important? So should people is it really wet lab focused? I know this will change a lot company to company, computational focused, or more what people often call soft skills. I actually saw yesterday they're calling them now durable skills, things like communication, teamwork, business, taking business classes. What do you all think?
It's Jeff again. I agree with I guess it was Diana who just said, you know, really we're looking for the right kind of experience, people that have the right experience for our particular position. And the education level is secondary to that. So if, you know, you happen to have an undergrad with tons of experience in the area I need, then that's great, you know. But the soft skills is really key, you know, and working at Monsanto is a huge company, you know, you want to work with people that you get along with and that are collaborative and that, you know, will work well with others. So call that a soft skill, but that's critical. You know, you can't teach that, but I think people need to be aware of that and try to work toward that as best they can. Yeah.
Great.
I would say,
Yeah,
so at Inari, we need people who do all kinds of things. We have people who work in the lab full-time, protein engineering, you know, molecular biology, also people who are quantitative, and then people who started out as PhD scientists, but are now in portfolio management or regulatory. So I would say that the most important durable skill that I wish I had developed is communication. And that's something you always hear, but I didn't understand how important it was until I went into industry. So like, for example, during lab meeting, can you start out your presentations with a broad explanation of your overview of why you're doing something that every single person in the room can understand that has different expertise. And then as you get more specific, can you explain the implications of your results and how you would mitigate any risks of like, okay, if this doesn't work, then I'll try this approach. And so that's important, not just for your advisor to understand what you're doing, but also to communicate to people from different expertise, which is what I constantly find myself doing in a company.
Great.
And I think another thing I wish I got more training or put more focus on in graduate school was patent. I think sometimes I was trained in the way like, okay, this is a cool discovery as long as if no one has published that or I made an improvement in the technical development, then I can publish that. But when it comes to the industry and patent world, it's a different story. I learned sometimes even just one claim or one sequence or one applications, you could just bump into a wall because someone already patented that. No offense, Jeff, but Monsanto did such a great job. And in my previous company, almost every direction we go, there's a few patents filed by Monsanto. So things like that, I think, and also another good thing about that is sometimes those corporations have amazing invention and discoveries. They don't publish in paper, but they put in patents. So that's also a good way to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, as a graduate student, we're often trained, we just read academic papers. And I would encourage students to look at your campus and courses that are available. You can often take courses in your business schools, science communication groups. All those are so important for all these skills everyone's described. And like Shu just said, I learned a lot from being taught about patents. And there's a whole world of scientific literature that goes there and doesn't end up on our Google Scholar pages. Great. Okay, so I'm going to hit a couple questions from the chat. Oh, yes, please, Henrik. Yeah.
That's just because you need to use the Google Patent Search app and not the Google Scholar.
Exactly.
Just put in the same search words and then you find all the patents.
Yes. I learned that it took me a long time until somebody actually showed me that. It's a great point. So a couple questions from the chat I'm going to kind of piece together briefly is thinking about international students. I noticed, thanks to our awesome list here, we've got some wonderful people tuning in from all over the world. So can international students or employees apply to US startups? And Henrik, I know you're a bit unique too because you are an international company. Can anyone comment on those international hiring practices?
So Inari has a policy of working with candidates that they're interested in towards the work visas, and also working with employees towards green cards. So from what I hear from our international employees, it was a big relief to go through the hiring process at Inari because we're very open to that. And as a result, we have an incredibly diverse workforce, so many different languages being spoken in the office. It's great.
Yeah, I would like to add here, especially working in a small startup, it brings new challenges for someone who is not a US national or permanent resident. And especially based on my personal experience, I can say that it is a much bigger challenge for someone who hails from countries whose citizens have a long wait time to get US permanent residency. India is one of those countries. So, but especially, the students have OPT, optional practical training. I believe that simplifies the process for international students as they can join a startup without a work visa. But I believe that during the interview process, the candidate should clearly explain their legal situation and negotiate with the company that they need a visa sponsorship, work visa. And also, it is very important for any student who is transitioning from OPT to H-1B visa should know, the limitations of the H-1B visa or the work visa, because, if it's a small startup and if it's not doing well and it closes shop or it lays off people, the folks who are on H-1B visa are in very precarious situation, because once an H-1B visa holder loses their job, their visa in a way become invalid, and they have a very limited time within which they have to leave the country. So folks who are interested in joining, say, small startups should definitely keep these risks in mind and think about it. It's very important that they should think about it.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah. I just want to add, like at Indigo, I'm an international. I've had all of the types of visas that you could imagine. So I really appreciate what you say, Anil, because there are advantages and disadvantages to each of those visas. But I do want to encourage students to apply, and as long as you are clear about your legal situation. And if you have what the company wants, they will sponsor you.
Wonderful. So at this point, we're getting close to the end of our time. I wanted to see if there's anything else that our panelists want to share with the viewers that you're dying to tell people before we close.
Just one following point I just posted on the chat. There's a venture capital firm I talked to before. They exclusively invest in immigrants and international students turned to founders. So if you have an idea and struggling with visa issue, reach out to them.
Great, thanks, Shu.
I just want to mention that Crunchbase is a really good way to find startups. It's $30 a month, and I found a ton of startups when I was applying that I never would have found otherwise.
Yeah, and no matter you're international student or not, especially international students, sometimes we have language and culture barrier. We tend to be shy and quiet. Don't be shy, reach out. I saw someone post on the question, shall I reach out to people I know work in the company before apply? Even if you don't know them, connect them on LinkedIn and reach out and talk to them. Sell yourself. You are your own brand and make yourself valuable in the job market.
I think I have one comment as well. If you walk around with a small idea, you think that could be a new company, don't shy away, try it out. And especially if you don't have family yet, so you're a bit more free to operate than if you have 2 kids and a house and a mortgage and whatever you need to think about every day. But try it out, and maybe it will fly, maybe it won't, but it's never going to hurt your CV that you tried to make a startup. That's so even also if you're an old professor like me. So.
Great. Well, this has been just such a wonderful conversation. Thank you to all of our panelists for spending your time with us today. I know all of you are very busy. And I hope that our viewers, you learned a lot. I know we did not get to all the questions in the chat. I'm sorry because we ran out of time. But if there's things that you want to see other webinars on, feel free to let me or Katie Rogers know so that we can make some in the future. I saw some questions about regulation that I thought were really interesting that we weren't able to get to. And I think I'm going to pass it off to Katie Rogers to send us home.
Yeah, I'd also like to say thank you, Katie Murphy, and all of our panelists for attending. It's been a really great, lively chat today, and so I really appreciate all of you who are attending for putting in resources there. I will be, we have links to everyone's LinkedIn, and I will be adding some of these questions and comments as well as our blog. So I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the chat now. That's something that I would go ahead and bookmark because as we go ahead and post the recording, I think it would be great to continue these conversations. So. Thank you all for joining, and I hope to see you at our next webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.